All right, we are back with our guest for the week. He's a global adventurer, an author, an entrepreneur, and keynote speaker, John Beede. How's it
Good,
going?
Brett. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, where are you at right
I'm
now?
in Henderson,
Um,
Nevada. If you're talking like specifically, I'm in my little
okay,
sound booth.
right. Is that near
Yeah,
Vegas?
exactly. It's just a suburb of Vegas.
Okay, gotcha. Is everything still crazy there, or like casinos
They
open,
tried to
or
open, they did a soft opening, and now you see like half
yeah?
the people walking around with masks, half not. We have like a 25% unemployment rate, and they're talking about like extra
Oh,
shutdowns. We got people coming in from all over the country. Like we were doing well, and then as soon as flights started coming in, it all got imported.
oh my gosh. Okay.
So
Um.
for people
So yeah.
for people listening and not watching, I gotta ask, what's the? It looks like you're in a nice little sound booth room. What you got? A side hustle you got going with that? Is that like for singing or is that audio stuff or?
Yeah, I built this thing because I was going to be recording the audiobook for the Warrior Challenge, the book I
Okay.
just released. And they said, "Hey man, like we want you to do this, but unless it's professional quality, we're going to have to hire
Mm-hmm.
uh
Mm-hmm.
like a narrator." So, well, time to figure
Right.
out audio, so I got like the sound guard here, the Plosion shield, and I got the panels on the wall and like made this makeshift
Nice.
sound booth. I'm actually like just in my walk-in closet, but from where you
Oh,
guys can see
yeah,
it
from
looks
our
like
view it looks like you're in a professional studio. It looks
yeah,
awesome.
I
Yeah.
just walked past like my dirty pile of underwear and my clothes hanging up, about like literally right behind where the computer's set up is my laundry pile. And yeah, it works. And I recorded the audiobook, and that's why this thing exists. And now, because I can't speak, all my promo for the book has been like on podcasts and talking to people on Zoom
Right.
calls and virtual conferences.
So let's dig into your book a little bit.
Well, that's
Cool.
I'm
uh,
getting I just forewarning right now, there's something going on with audio right now. I'm getting Brad and then you guys are like overlapping in time. So if I'm getting it's weird. It's weird for me to listen to right now. So sorry if there's like I don't know, it's
okay.
weird. You'll start a sentence halfway through him ending a sentence. I don't know what's going on. But we'll be able to edit that out. But let's talk about the book. What Brad knows a little bit more, but what was the inspiration for the book? What is the book?
Yeah, so you said I'm a global adventurer, and I traveled the world climbing the tallest mountain on every continent. So the top of Mount Everest, the top of Antarctica's Mount Vinson, Denali in Alaska. And I went through this 10-year journey climbing these mountains. And when I came back, I had experienced like 16 deaths up close and personal, and or like nearby them because of these mountaineering accidents. Um, so I like figured out what that meant to me, healed from it, and then I had a random publisher come to me and say, "Hey, we're looking for a book for boys about what it means to be a man." Because they'd heard the climbing stories, but they didn't know about the tough stuff that I'd gone through. So I was like, "Sure, I'll
Hmm.
write it, but it's going to be intense. It's going to get real, and it's going to like really look at what it means to be a good human being in today's culture as a guy." Because I don't know about you guys, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I had some like messed up messages about what it is to be a guy when I was in middle school and high school. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm gonna try and rewrite the script. So I want to ask you two, like, what messages did you get, or what do you have about like, here's what it means to be a man, here's what it means to be a guy. Are you open to
I
going there?
yeah, absolutely. I feel like I was extremely lucky. I started out my parents got divorced when I was 10 and that did leave like a real weird thing. You know, dad kind of left the picture, but within about 3 years, my stepfather came into the picture and just like the best of the best guy you could ever ask for. And you know, was like very attentive and you know, always, you know, perfect, you know, little childhood. And but I do, you know, so everything good for me as far as having a good man figure, and then also I have an uncle that I've always looked up to, and he was a big part of my life. And he's a motorcycle racer, and he's traveled the world doing motorcycle racing, and he's a man's man. He's like 75, you know, just always out, you know. So always had good father figures, but I have also this has been it's funny when Brad mentioned you coming on. I find this I love what you're doing. I've had a lot of conversations with people that I think there's a big problem in society of not only maybe father figures and not really necessarily that argument, but more like there's just not like rites of passage for men.
Yeah,
Like, unless I don't know, you know what I mean? So many people are just, there's nothing, and they just go to school and then out into the world. There's no, yeah, there's nothing there. Where
that's what climbing those mountains was for me. There
yeah,
was nothing there. There was no path. So in hindsight, now I know, like I wanted to climb these mountains because I wanted to fill in that gap that wasn't there. Like you, I had a great father figure. Society gave me these messages of like, be tough, grit through the pain at all costs, be a strong guy, like don't admit to
Yeah.
emotions. So Brad, I want to hear your thoughts too, but Eric, just for like confirmation of what you're saying, there was no rite of passage. So in this book, rather than saying like, hey kids, go climb every mountain in the world, which is not only like super expensive, but not a lot of people can actually do that
hmm
or will do that or even want to do that. I was like, why don't I lay out a path of what I think everybody can relate to and make this rite of passage in the form of a book, 8 quests. And that's why the book exists. All right, Brad, let's hear it. What did you get?
Yeah. Yeah, well, similar to Eric, my parents divorced when I was 11. And then dad was kind of out of the picture. And I don't think I had a lot of good examples. I kind of just attached myself to, the easiest examples that
Mm.
were around me at the time and just tried to learn from that. But I think I'm still figuring it out a lot and still just trying to navigate the waters. So I don't know. I mean, I think I'm doing okay so far. But after 11, when parents got divorced, it was me and my brother and my single mom. After that, and it was just us then. So then it was just like, oh, I got to pick up a lot of the slack around this place
Oh,
now
interesting. Like there was a call to
because
action, like I need to step up now. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because she needs help and stuff like that. So I don't know. And I just attach myself to a lot of examples of, maybe that's how I should act as I'm turning into an adult. And a lot of them were bad, but some of them were good. And some of them, pulled me aside every now and again to talk about consequences of your actions and stuff like that. And, learning lessons from mistakes and some of that. So there was a lot of good and a lot of bad. But I think for the most part, I'm still trying to navigate what the hell I'm supposed to be
I
doing.
think if you think you've ever figured it out fully, then you got something wrong. Like we're all
Right.
trying to figure it out as we go, that's for sure.
Right, right, right.
So I wrote this book as throughout all the mountains that I've climbed, what are the values that I would have loved to have had before I went and climbed, and giving those to the young men in the
Hmm.
world and laying them out like all 8. When you first enter the book, a Maasai warrior confronts the reader, asking them to step up, just to make a choice, just like you had when you were young, like that moment of, hey, let's like there's a need for you to become bigger, make that choice.
Hmm.
Then a guy who jumped over the Great Wall of China, Danny Way, on a skateboard back in 2005, shows you how to
Hmm.
like learn self-awareness. How do you observe your body, breathe, and watch your breath so that you can see like not only how you are in a moment without just being reactionary, but be intentional and like learn how you can see how you influence others. Then a Baja 1000 off-road racer takes you like tumbling down the desert and shows you how to choose your own values. Challenge 4, a guy who
Wow.
escaped from a communist country. This is my friend Wally Sturbu. He took seal blubber, smeared it all over his body in March, using that as a makeshift wetsuit. Swims across the icy
Hmm.
Danube River, gets to Yugoslavia, hitchhikes across Slavia as he's at the border of Yugoslavia and Austria, gets caught. They send dogs on him, cuff him to like knock him out, cuff him to the inside of the tank, put him in jail. He's in jail for a year. He does the exact same thing again, swims across the river, hitchhikes, finally makes it into Austria, starts applying for asylum, finally becomes admitted into the United States, becomes a Chicago City firefighter. And that in that lesson, I teach how to set boundaries. Like, how do you choose what standards you will and will not accept for yourself and for your life?
Right.
Challenge 5, how to find good friends, like people who will lift you up. Like you two have each other. You bring out the best in one another. I've heard you guys chatting in some other calls and you get real with each other. You drop some F bombs. I love it. And like, I'm kind of disappointed. I haven't heard any yet. I'm like, oh, they don't feel comfortable with me quite yet. We'll get there. We'll get there, boys. Challenge 6 is about like grit and resilience. And here I put the reader in the shoes of Ernest Shackleton. He's an Antarctic explorer who lived for 2 years and sort of saved every one of his crew members from their sunken ship in Antarctica, like rowing hundreds of miles across the ocean, finding rescue. Challenge 7, an NFL player shows how to stop toxic relationships and recognize them. And then finally in Challenge 8, a pirate from the Civil War who escaped from Charleston, South Carolina, earning his freedom, teaches equality and how to choose your battleground in life. So those are the 8 quests. What do you want to talk about?
Like,
So is this like what age group do you think that is the demographic for this book? That's one question, and the other one is just like, is this sort of a good book to buy for like your nephew or your son or something like that, or are you expecting those kind of younger kids to just find it themselves, or I don't, you know what I'm? Does that kind of
Totally,
make
totally.
sense?
So first part of the question, like who is it for? The age group
Yeah,
technically is 8 to 12. I think it's for a kid as soon as he's hit
yeah,
puberty. So I wrote it for like, as soon as a guy starts making those physical changes in his body, he needs to learn what to do
yeah,
with that new energy. That's like when rite of passages back in the day started is, okay, this kid's like becoming of age. Let's send him through this trial. Let's send him into the Aboriginal desert of Australia. Excuse me, just the desert of Australia in the Aboriginal tribes there, or like jumping from vines in trees in Vanuatu, or hunting a lion, or running across castrated bulls. Like these are all real, or like rites of passages that happened when a kid hit puberty
right,
there. So the second part of the question, how should a kid read this book? Kid's not going to, let's be honest, like a kid's not going to find this book on his own, like searching on Amazon and pull out his credit card. So this is designed as like a
right,
guide for an adult, uncle, grandparent, parent, teacher, to
yep,
be the warrior guide, talking through these lessons and how they apply to their own society. So it's for sure for any adult
gotcha,
who has a young man in their life to
okay.
grab this book and like
So
gift it.
for both sides, both parents and a son.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome, man.
mm,
I think that's very noble. And again, I've it's funny. I've had this conversation about the no rites of passage. You know, what I mean, it's like it's something I'd say only 10-20% of men get. Through either their parents put them in some kind of like survival training or something like that. Or something like that. It seems like
They like get their Eagle Scout merit badge,
yeah,
or they like join the
yeah,
military, or they go climbing
yeah.
mountains like
Mhm.
me. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, what got you into like the mountains exactly? That was just one day you're just like I'm gonna go climb mountains.
I was in Boy Scouts, and
Okay.
my dad forced me to go to this scout camp. I was kicking, screaming, did not want to go, and he's like, "I need some time alone with my wife, and like just get the kids out, send them to scout camp." And I went, and I was thrown right into this like outdoor adventure section of the camp. So we did rappelling, climbing, whitewater, and snow hiking, which is like beginner mountaineering, basically. That's what got me psyched. When I was 22, my buddy calls me up, says, "Hey, you're good at climbing, right?" I was like, "Yeah." He says, "Well, I want to climb the Grand Teton. You want to go?" I was like, "Well, all I have is a harness and a rope, and we don't have any gear." He's like, "Well, I don't either, but let's go anyway." So we went, and you're supposed to have like quick draws and gear to plug into the rocks to keep yourself safe along the way. Our whole plan was, let's climb this mountain tied together with our harnesses tied to the same rope. And if one of us falls, it's the other person's job to jump over the closest rock that you could find so we could like pendulum. And
oh
that
my
like,
god,
and like somehow in this idiot idea of, sure, that's safe, let's go climb this mountain, we made it. And we couldn't afford a tent either. And everybody says it's like, most people go as like a 2-day or 2-night trip. We're like, we can't afford a tent, so we just have to do it in one shot. So we make this like 3-day thing into this 19-hour grueling journey where we're like hanging on the side of the rock, tied to each other, like, oh, I can't move. And
oh,
it was the dumbest thing, but it showed me that I have what it takes to dig deep. Like when I don't have the strength to take a single other step, somehow I found the ability to go in and find that energy. And that's where my love of mountaineering came from, of like peeling the body back, peeling my physical defenses down and seeing what strength is underneath it and building that kind of spirit up.
Right. And what I kind of wanted to say earlier, it's cool because they say like be the person you needed when you were younger, and that's
Mm.
exactly what you're doing, right? So that's awesome. But and also, so climbing Everest, can like the average person do it? Because I feel like I've heard conflicting arguments that so many people are doing it that there's like trash everywhere now, and there's like you're bumping into people and stuff like that. So can the average person do it, or is it like some intense training, which I've heard as well?
So let's talk Everest. That's a great
Yeah.
question. Anybody can train to climb Mount Everest as long as you like have a normally functioning body.
Yeah.
Can every single person just show up out at Everest like right now and make it up? Hell no.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
I trained for 9 months. I was in the best shape of my life. I have been climbing dozens and dozens of other mountains in advance. I got there and it
Hmm.
was still the hardest thing I've ever done. It took me 2 months of climbing. It takes everybody 2 months. And to have like the emotional endurance, the physical stamina, the skill level of what you need to like transfer between the rope lines. Hell yeah, you need like some serious training and previous experience.
It takes
The
two.
people who
Gotcha.
get in trouble are those who show up without any like without the proper prerequisites.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there
That makes
is
sense.
there is there trash everywhere? I didn't see it. The only trash I ever saw, and I was like, man, that's like needs to be cleaned up a little bit, was at Camp 4, which is at 26,000 feet. And there was like 100, 200 square foot camp area there where there's like shards of tents and old poles and human
Uh,
feces there. But
uh,
largely, I found the mountain totally pristine. And I think that the reports that say it's a disaster for trash are from like reporting on reporting when it
yeah.
was a disaster back in the 80s. But now it's like, this is gorgeous. And I didn't
Uh,
have big deals with crowds. Crowds are there, but they weren't there on the days I chose to climb.
huh.
It takes 2 months to get.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
I don't really know anything about, yeah, long mountain climbing at all. And in my mind, I was like, oh, a few days. You like go up a few days, few days back. That blows me away. Can you do it faster than that, or is that just like,
So you can if you've climbed another mountain to what we say is acclimatize. So your blood right now, even mine right now, doesn't have enough red blood cells to let you survive at high altitude. Like if the three of us were helicoptered to the top of Everest right now, we'd all be dead within 15 minutes because
Hmm.
we don't have enough red blood cells to carry the oxygen. So the reason you have to go slowly is you go from where you land at a little town called Lukla up to base camp. That takes you 10 days. You're at 17,500 feet at base camp. Then you go climb a surrounding mountain, get up to 20,000 feet, go back down to base camp. You spend like 4 or 5 days there healing, recovering, letting your body build those red blood cells. Then you're actually on Mount Everest and you climb up to Camp 1, sometimes straight up to Camp 2, and you go back down to base camp. Heal 3, 4, 5 days. Then you go up to Camp 1, up to Camp 2, up to Camp 3, get a taste of that thin air at 23,500 feet. Then you go all the way back down to base camp, heal, recover, like deal with your injuries. Because above 17,000, your little cracks in your fingers won't heal themselves. Your aches in your body don't, like your muscles don't get into like fighting shape again. Then you like wait for the weather to be right, because what it is like you can only climb in a 1 or 2 week window every single year because the jet stream is straight on the side of Mount Everest, hitting it at 180 miles an hour all year. But when the Asian monsoons push that jet stream off, because the seasonal changes, it gives you like this 1 or 2 week window of calm weather. So you're like, okay, cool. It's calm now. We have our little window. I'm all the way up to Camp 3, Camp 4. I'm acclimatized. Then you have your little short window where you can push up to the summit, get back down, and then it takes 10 days or really 5 days to get back out. And then you fly home, and that's why it takes 2 months.
is
Wow.
there people that like stay at Camp 3, or can you not do that? Like, can you
Um,
not stay? Can like if you are some freak, or whatever, can you get you to the point where you can stay at 17,000 feet? I think is what you said.
Part of the equation is genetics. And so the locals in Nepal, Sherpa, are way more genetically superior than me being a white guy. And so they can recover like at 23,500 feet. They would even stay, some of them at 26,000 feet, like managing the camp there. But they would even admit, like, hey, I'm having some, like, I'm not holding it together. And they would need to come down to like breathe more oxygen. So it depends on your genetics. It depends on your fitness. It depends on your um, like your body's response to this thin air.
That's
Would you do it again?
I would definitely be interested in climbing the north side of the mountain. I went up the south
Okay.
side. I don't. I don't think because of the lethality of it and having kind of just seen it and know what it's about, I would spend that time energy training on a different viewpoint.
Gotcha.
But I kind of want to have kids and I kind of want to like have a serious relationship, and that doesn't
yeah.
like gel well with it. So I'm
Right.
more inclined to focus on other adventures at the moment.
And you said you climbed in Antarctica, correct?
Yeah, that was the last of the seven summits, and just getting there was crazy. We take off from the southern tip of South America, put us in this. It's called an Ilyushin aircraft. There's only two of them in the world that can go this distance and carry the amount of weight that it was carrying. I mean, they carry like snow cats in the airplane, and then when you land, the snowcat like drives out of the back of the airplane with you deplaning. And we take
Gee.
another plane from there. It's only got skis on the bottom of it. Take off from the snowfield, land at this base camp. The pilot is coming in uphill. He like aims the airplane uphill, lands on this slope, comes to a hockey stop. We dump all the gear out. He turns around, goes back down that slope, and then he's just gone, disappears, and you're left with 1,000 miles to civilization in any direction. You don't know when he's going to come back. It could be 2 weeks, or if there's a storm, it could be 6 weeks. And you're just there on your own with like 10 days, 16 days of food. And you know that if something goes bad and you need to stay there longer, that it's the ethic that all the other teams before you have buried their extra food in the snow and ice. So there are these little wands everywhere. And if you run out of food and you just go over to one of those wands, you start digging up the snow, you could find like a 20-year-old cache of food from some other expedition that
Huh.
just left it there for as like, here
Crazy.
you go, here you guys go.
That's crazy. So does that not have? Because I had a lot of friends, and now I'm probably never going to do it, but I've had a few friends that have done the Antarctica. Obviously not going there to climb, but they go to Antarctica to go work at the McMurdo station. You know what I mean? Did
Cool. Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
did you go to McMurdo?
I didn't. McMurdo is in a different region, and like the prohibitive thing of Antarctica is how expensive it is to go there. That was the most expensive flight I will ever pay for. It was $30,000 just to get to that spot,
Wow.
and like by far the vast majority of the cost of that was just that single flight. I mean, I'm sitting in the airplane, like with each minute that goes by, I'm like, how much did that minute cost me?
So
It was just
I know that because isn't Antarctica like everyone has their own little stakes, all the other countries. When you go to climb there, are you like in a specific country's territory, or is that just all shared by all countries, or is it just like a
Yeah. So it's kind of divided up like a pie because Antarctica is mostly a circle, and then the little pie wedges are what each country has kind of claimed or have been divvied up.
mm-hmm.
And so that I think was in Chile's um,
Okay.
stake. But honestly, when I got down there, I kind of was like reading Ernest Shackleton and got into this like really wild, wild west kind of mentality of this is no man's land, and it really feels like it down there. Like anything, there's
Yeah.
thousands of miles of nothing but white ice, black rock, and blue sky. Those are the only three colors you see: the blue sky, the white snow beneath you in the clouds, and then the black rocks. It's the most bizarre thing. When I came back, I was like, green! That's incredible! There's green!
That's man, that's super cool. That's crazy. I don't think I have that would. Were you scared? Like getting
At
dropped off
first,
in the
there's
middle of
this,
nowhere? I feel like I'd kind of freak out a little bit. Like,
there was definitely a little panic moment of like, what the hell are we doing? And then the stillness sets in. You don't have a cell phone, so you don't have any. I had my phone, but it doesn't have signal. So I was just like taking photos with it. You don't have any sense of time because the sun doesn't set. It just
hmm
moves around you in a circle straight above 24 hours a day. Like it might dip behind a mountain and then the temperature changes 30 degrees because you're in the shade. And
hmm
then it goes, and so that's like from -10 to like negative 30 or 40 it would drop down to, and it's like that's the shade, the awesome. And then um but you get in this like sense of time doesn't mean anything. It's the weirdest thing. Like you kind of transcend human schedule and just go into whatever the heck you guys want to do. Sometimes we would leave at 2 p.m. Sometimes we would leave at 10 a.m. Sometimes we'd get back at 11 p.m. And you'd never do that on a normal mountain. But because the sun is just always up, we just went when we felt like it.
Yeah. It did. What's is the elevation crazy there? Did you have to do the same thing where you had to go up and come down and go up and come down, or?
We did, but not to the same degree. I didn't know this, but Antarctica is the tallest overall continent. It's also a desert. It's just dry through and through. And but because it gets like an inch of precipitation every year in the form of snow, that has built up over the thousands of years to be an average of 5,000 feet above sea level. So you're a mile high to start, and then we went up to 16,000 and change is the altitude of the summit. So it's still below even Everest Base Camp, but it's an epic adventure just being there and with nothing around other than your own competence to get you to the top.
So is even the mountain gaining elevation every year?
That's a good question. I actually don't know if that's one that's like being whittled away by the elements or if it's still rising. I don't know the answer to that.
Hmm. Ah, hell yeah, that's awesome.
Nice.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Brad, you got anything?
No, no. I love what I'm hearing though. I love the book, the idea of the book. Um, yeah. Do you want to send anybody anywhere to where they can find it? Any destinations?
Yeah, of course. So if anybody listening is jazzed on this, knows a young man who would be into stories like this and take some of these values, if you want to be a warrior guide to young men, then I'll give you a free signed insert. And all you have to do is go to www.warriorchallengebook.com. It's also on Amazon. And if you just search for The Warrior Challenge, 8 quests for boys to grow up with kindness, courage, and grit. You're looking for the bright red cover. But free sample and of both the audiobook, ebook, and the signed insert are at warriorchallengebook.com.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and I love that you read your own audiobook. I hate it when authors get the other people to read for them. It's
Yeah,
just so much better when the author reads it. So I love that.
sweet. Thanks. I hope I did a good job. It was the first like serious recording session I'd done, so I did my darndest and definitely put the energy in that I
Yeah,
intended to write it with.
Yeah, I
yeah, that's
usually listen to an
awesome.
audiobook a day when I'm at work, so I'll definitely go through this one. It'll give me something to listen to.
I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it was great having you on. You're a super
yeah. Thank
interesting
you.
guy. I love talking to people that have just done crazy things, and that's some crazy stuff. And I'd like much appreciation because again, it's something I've like kind of held close to my heart that I think it's just a weird time to be a man. You know what I mean? And there's not much, other than military or that it's kind of just video games. You know what I mean? And I think it's a real negative thing that's happening with men across the board is and you're starting to see the results of all this and they're not.
I know I just gave the plug and that's normally end time, but do we have a few minutes we can like
Yeah,
dig into that thought?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So with this idea of like the need for it and how it's negative because there's a void, girls are getting an incredible head start, and it's great. It's healthy, it's good. And like in schools, there's taught this thought of, here are your strengths as a woman, here's your, or as a female, you've got like incredible communication, incredible empathy. How do we nurture that? And there's a beautiful, like, you see girls' camps, you see women's retreats, you see books that are designed towards nurturing these natural strengths. Guys don't have that. There's nothing that says like, hey, here's your natural strengths. It's not toxic just because you're male. In fact, I think
Right.
that like the toxicity comes from there is no guidance. So the solution isn't like give less guidance, and it should be here's here's the path to embrace these new kind of natural strengths as a total generalization that males end up getting. And instead of using violence for the strength, how do you create toughness in virtues? And that's what this book is all about. And like that's what the point of a rite of passage was in the first place, to show here's how you protect your tribe, and here's how you handle yourself with competence. Um, and that's what's the aim of this project, this book.
Is this something you've kind of held close to your? Is there was there a reason that you're going down this path of like, you know, of trying to help young men, or do you just detach that from your childhood, or
I had always thought like I'm gonna write something for guys at some point. And the honest truth is the editor, the publisher, came to me and said, "Hey, we heard about this feat. We want this book." And they were kind of going along the lines of like a different approach of uh, there's this need to answer the Me Too movement. There's this need to answer toxic masculinity. I was coming with like, there's a need to harness it. And it became this beautiful synergy in writing the book because we had these two um, complementary interests or reasons for wanting to write it. While writing it, there were some tragedies that happened to young men in my life, and then it became like I'm writing specifically for you, for these young men who I'm not going to go into their details because that's their story, but I was like, I'm going to do everything I can to say like, here's how to handle that. Here's how to handle everything that you might face as a young man today, like the real stuff that's going on. And here's how to live a healthy and happy life. Um, so I wanted to be kind of like to these, it became very personal. It became one of the hardest things I've ever done, of confronting my own flaws as a guy, being honest with myself about like, I haven't lived up to every one of these things that I'm even espousing here.
hmm
And that's part of the point. Like we all don't have to be perfect. We don't have to have our shit 100% together. We can drop F-bombs on the show and that's totally cool. And like that's real. And in respecting one another for our flaws and helping to like strengthen each other through them and carry each other through our weaknesses, being able to ask for help, that in fact is the real definition of strength, because you know that at some point you can turn around and help someone else who's also asking you for help.
yeah, I find like, you know, I work construction. I'm around like, men, the manly man guys all the time,
Right.
and I just I don't know what I get really irritated, like especially guys my age, like just watching them, and I don't know if this is kind of some of the paths like in your book, like addressing, but I feel like a lot of them, like I'll hear them like talk about their girlfriend or something like that. You know what I mean? And it's just like there's no, you just see respect and just like really negative attributes just keep going. Like I have friends that I'll hear them like talk about their girlfriend or something, or they did this, and oh fuck her, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, this is, so negative. Like everything that's going
Totally.
on, and and it's, yeah, I don't know if it's just culture. It's like it's cooler to be like I got, all these bitches. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like that thing, and it's just it's so negative. It's like, man, there's no wonder you're so depressed. You know what I mean? It's like you're creating depression like around you. You're just trying to like play this cool guy part, and it's like not being respectful, really even being respectful of yourself. Then you get a bunch of dudes in a room together, and it's like, I don't know. There's like no real not. I mean, there is, but it seems like a lot of guys between the age 18 to 30, it's like everything is like a, a pissing contest. You know what I mean? And it's just like there's no like building each other up. You know what I mean? It's all I don't know. It's I don't know if that kind of plays into your book at all, but it's I feel like really negative to be a guy. You know, it's always yeah, having a heartfelt conversation with a guy is like, you know, completely taboo. Like you can't do that. You know what I mean? And then
That is 100% the intent of this book. Instead of 18 to 30, never being able to handle even a real conversation, let alone think of a woman in a way that is not objectifying. I mean, even just like to put a guy down, it's like, oh, you're such a little girl, or don't be such a little bitch, or like against homosexuality, don't be so gay. Like that's what I grew up learning. Like that,
hmm
it's those are awful messages, and that's exactly what this counters. Is these are humans. Other guys are also humans. You can be real with other people, and laying out this framework of like the most badass adventurers that I've ever heard of are the ones teaching these lessons. I wanted to make it like it's actually awesome to like Everest level awesome to be vulnerable and talk about what's really hurting, or it's actually like the most incredible thing you can do to talk your men like Shackleton did through their struggles and hear what's going on in their lives and tell what's going on in yours. 100% agree with you.
yeah, I think it's a real red flag when someone won't show any emotion. You know what I mean? I'm like, man,
Hmm.
something's going on in there. Like you,
There's a lot underneath
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, rock and roll, man. I loved having you on. You were an excellent guest, and I will definitely push this because I it's something I kind of hold. You know, I really do think you're doing something awesome, and I hope
Thank you
I
guys.
hope it snowballs
Yeah.
and that you get some real traction with it. That's awesome.
Brad, Eric, I appreciate you guys having me on. If you're listening, like this episode, subscribe to this show, forward it to your friends. It helps the show. Thanks a lot,
Yes.
guys, for having me on. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much, man. Have a good day.
Thanks, John.
Cool.
We'll be back.